Hi everybody, my name is Maureen Gage, and this is my presentation for my senior overview paper. The topic I chose is the universal human right to nationality. Nationality is something that many people, including myself, take for granted, and there's situations throughout the world that are not respecting of people's rights for a nationality, including here in the United States. And I have two cases that I've presented in my paper. The first case is the undocumented immigrants and dreamers that are seeking asylum here in the United States, and those who were adopted before the year of 2000 and have not received their citizenship or been neutralized. Even though some of the second case was done unknowingly, there are still violations of the human right to a nationality. And there are also potential solutions that have been suggested by multiple people, including myself. Nationality is defined as involving allegiance on the part of an individual and includes the membership of a particular nation and also includes the protection on the part of a state. Nationality can be acquired in one of three ways: jus soli, which is by birth of states on a state's territory; jus sanguinis, by descent from a state's national; or by naturalization. And I'm sorry, I got kind of cut off there. An example of jus soli is the United States, when someone is born here. The Child Citizenship Act of 2000, or CCA, was introduced to allow certain foreign-born adopted children to receive their U.S. citizenship automatically. Since I was adopted in 1995, we didn't have this act to make things easier. The CCA will automatically grant citizenship if the recipients are under 18, live in the custody of at least one American parent, is a lawful permanent resident, and if the adoption process is final in the United States or abroad. The U.S. Department of State says that although citizenship may be automatic, the issue of citizenship documents is not necessarily automatic. The ways to document citizenship are a valid U.S. passport or a certificate of naturalization, which is what I have here. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted to be the standard of what protection of human rights should look like. It's also the first document set in stone that says that human rights are to be universally protected. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Articles 14 and 15 are directed towards immigrants. Article 14 says that everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. And Article 15 states that everyone has the right to a nationality, and also that no one is to be deprived of his nationality or the right to change it. The UDHR is thought to be the foundation of international human rights law, which means that every country has an obligation to protect these human rights. The next document is the Convention on the Rights of the Child. This convention ensures that the civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights of children are protected. Article 7 says that children should be registered immediately after birth and also have the right to acquire a nationality. Article 8 says that state parties should respect the right of the child to preserve his or her identity, including nationality. The preservation is important to a child's health and gives them self-esteem that they need to become a productive adult of society. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or the ICCPR, is a multilateral treaty that the United Nations adopted in 1976. The ICCPR has articles that declare nationality a right, as well as protections for statelessness. It says that Article 24 of the ICCPR says that every child has the right to acquire a nationality. Then Article 12 adds that everyone has the right to liberty of movement and to choose his residence. The 1954 Convention establishes minimum standard of treatment for stateless people in respect to a number of rights. The Statelessness Convention recognizes the right for housing, education, access to the courts, employment, and public relief, among other rights. In some cases, such as in cases to the courts and access to public relief and education, stateless persons are to be treated in the same way as nationals. Article 27 of this convention says that the states shall issue identity papers to any stateless person in their territory. And the next article says that the states should give sympathetic consideration to the issue of such a travel document to stateless persons in their territory who are unable to obtain a travel document from their own country. Statelessness can be caused by discrimination and conflict against a group of minority people. One example of this is the Rohingya, who are victims of ethnic cleansing. Many Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh because they have been denied citizenship. And the campaign that led Donald Trump's presidency is filled with prejudice against immigrants, particularly people in Latin America. The immigration system has been one of the main issues for President Trump's administration. He has made several decisions already, including cuts, ending DACA, and restricting entries for asylum seekers from 7 countries. According to an article titled Trump's Act of State Terrorism Against Children, the author compares Trump's zero-tolerance policy to those of Hitler and Stalin. He compares them because there have been detained children who are separated from their parents, reported to be kept in cages, among other human rights abuses. These stages of genocide were made so people can see the early warning signs and to know when it is coming. Some aspects of Guerreau's article mention that the treatment of the undocumented Latino are in conjunction with the early stages of genocide. There is clearly a classification between us and them, even towards other Latinos who have citizenship, such as myself. And asylum seekers flee to the United States because they have to. Most of the people from Latin America come from Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. These people seek asylum in the United States because of the lack of education, the violence, which is mostly gang-related, and conflict and genocide. Countries are still trying to build from conflict, so many of the citizens feel as though fleeing their country is the only way for a better life. Guatemala in particular is still struggling from the effects of the Guatemalan Civil War. DACA is short for the Consideration of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and it is a document that is referring to certain people who have come to the United States at a young age. The children under DACA are eligible for work authorization and is considered a path to citizenship. The Hispanic Journal for Behavioral Sciences published an article It is a collection of DACA recipients who were interviewed. The participants revealed that before DACA, they grew up feeling like they didn't belong. And DACA also gives access to healthcare and education. The temporary solution made the participants still feeling like they belong neither to the United States or Mexico. Jeff Gamage wrote an interesting article about babies who are adopted without receiving their citizenship. In this article, Gamage seems to find that the parents were given bad advice or didn't care about naturalization. He says that when international adoption was relatively new, many parents wrongly believed that adoption and immigration were the same thing. Actually, until 2000, they were two separate processes. Not getting citizenship after adoption puts a lot of obstacles in the children's way, such as further education, employment, and applying for a passport. The same situation was mentioned in another article for people who were born in Iran and South Korea. The Kino Border Initiative, the Center for Migration Studies in New York, and the Office of Justice and Ecology of the Jesuit Conference of Canada and the United States conducted a study called the Crisis Study. The interviews from the study delved into 1. The impact of removals on deportees and their families, 2. The deportation process, and 3. The relationship between deportees and their families. The studies questioned 133 deportees at a migrant shelter in Sonora. On average, more than 56% entered the country as minors below 18, 21% below the age of 10. The report states that 78% of the survey respondents had children who has U.S. citizenship, and that 40% reported having dependents with chronic health and other conditions, including heart disease, cancer, and that their children were experiencing difficulties in school. Some of the recommendations that I found were from the crisis report. In the crisis report, it suggests that deportation and arrest need to be deprioritized. It was also mentioned that the need for access to legal counsel, visitation guidelines, transparency, and humane conditions need to be prioritized. In April 2019, President Trump put out a threat to dump undocumented immigrants to sanctuary cities. Although there is more work that could be done on this issue, I think that this is a good start. And as Ellen DeGeneres says, be kind to one another. I think that is something that we can all do. Thank you very much for listening, and let me know what other suggestions you have.